What's up, gamers? I've recently been reading this webcomic called Blades of Furry. I really like it. It's the story of a bat and a deer who need to beat each other at figure skating, but there's also a ton of romantic tension between them. Lovely story. It's by these amazing people. But the problem with reading something like this is that you need to ask yourself, am I a furry? Which I think is a conversation that everyone needs to eventually have with themselves. You know, everybody has to sit down and figure that one out at some point. But in doing this self-reflection, I felt like this was an unfair question. A loaded question, if you will. So I started to change my own view of the situation a little bit, and I decided that I wanted to try to change the way that we perceive being a furry from a black and white matter to something that's a bit more nuanced. So on that note, I'd like to proudly present what I am calling the Furry Spectrum. The Furry Spectrum doesn't ask, are you a furry or not? The Furry Spectrum helps you answer, how much of a furry am I? And I'd wager to believe that most people fall somewhere on this spectrum. It increases in severity from left to right, and it's divided into 4 distinct subsections. And I'm going to be telling you how to identify which of those 4 subsections you fall into. Starting all the way over at the left, we have our first section, who I'm calling the undetectables. Those who fall under this section can go their entire life without even realizing that they're like a little bit of a furry. But trust me, they are. How do you know if you're in this section? Super easy to tell. Answer one question. Is my favorite animated film about anthropomorphic animals? I can imagine there might be some resistance to this notion, but hear me out. If you answer the question, yes, I believe there to be just an inkling of furry in you. Just the fact that you were able to open your heart to anthropomorphic animals, to sympathize with them, means that there's just a little bit of furry in you. And that's okay. That's okay. One exception can also be made for live action films, and that is the Twilight Saga. If you identify or have historically identified as someone who is on Team Jacob, you are also in this section. Of course, this being a spectrum, this being a sliding scale, there are different extents to which you can fall into this subsection as well. For example, is your favorite film about anthropomorphic animals? Yes, okay. But was it The Lion King, Finding Nemo, right? You're pretty close to the beginning. You're not that deep into it yet. You've basically got normal animal anatomy, but with human faces, so you're kind of safe. Although I will say, the Can You Feel the Love Tonight scene in The Lion King is probably the only socially acceptable GIF that has ever been put out in theaters. And Elton John was probably into that. But as you creep toward the extreme of that spectrum, you know, God forbid your favorite animated film is Shark Tale, you know, you're looking at fish with hips. That's a little bit suspect. And should you have answered Zootopia, well, you're pretty close to the border of the next section, because there's just a lot to unpack with that one. Speaking of the next section, the people who fall into this category are known as the reserved. I call them this because this is a conversation that they've already had with themselves, and they know what they are. They know that they've made space in their heart for anthropomorphic animals, sympathizing, empathizing, even romanticizing them. But to the public eye, none of that is visible. These people may have even tried to tell some of their loved ones about their persuasions, and the stark differences between their public and private selves have been so great that people have either outright ignored or chosen not to believe that this is who you are. It doesn't match their perception of you, it doesn't match their perception of what they think a furry looks like, and so they're just going to take that and tuck it away in a part of their brain that they never really go to anymore, for safekeeping. But in their hearts, these people make no mistake about what they are. That being said, it's still a pretty chill place. There still isn't any kinning or anything going on yet, but these people have experimented, and the experiments came out positive. You might have checked out some art, comics, movies, and it's all in good fun, just because you enjoy it. You probably even checked out Fur Affinity 1 or 2 times just to see what's going on over there. My high school actually had a confessions page, which I only utilized one single time, and it was to make this confession. I'd like to formally apologize to anyone I went to high school with who might be watching this. So it was at this point in the process that I had answered my own question. Am I a furry? Maybe at 25% strength. But it was also in creating this spectrum that I needed to look further and figure out how I would be classifying the people who don't stop now. Next up on the list, we've got the Weekend Furries. Honestly, I'm not even here to hate on them. They're probably having more fun with their life than any of the rest of us are. Their culture has got some really good art, animation, music. Shout out Ken Ashcore. Say what you will, but when the mood is right, this song hits different. There's a little bit of kinning going on here. They might be going to cons on the weekends sometimes, once in a while. They're keeping it safe, fun, maybe even sexy, and honestly, They might have a partial or entire fursuit in their possession, I don't know. They might make partial or entire fursuits. That is one thing about the Weekend Furries that I can respect. Some of them are doing an incredible job capitalizing, securing the bag on this fandom alone, commissioning art pieces, bespoke fursuits. Come on, there's bank to be made here. You can ask any online artist, what's the hierarchy of how much money you can make selling your art on the internet? In dead last, we've got, Goku drinking lean, sad Bart Simpson edits, alright, that's, the peanut gallery down here. The entire middle is populated by people who create amazing work with 15, 20 years of experience behind them. And then smiling down on all of those other categories, it's NSFW furry artists who make more than Google engineers. So to the Weekend Furries, I respect you. You seem to be having a great time, despite society's incessant judgment of you. A lot of you are making bank, so if I'm being honest, you have what a lot of people want in life. But now it's time to address the other extreme of the spectrum, a section which I've named the damned. If you find yourself in this section, you will find yourself in an environment that is rife with yiffing, glomping, and God forbid, clopping. These folks can think fondly back on the days when they owned but one fursuit. Some of the damned have been kinning for so long that they've lost every shred of humanity that they had within them. I believe them when they say that on all levels except physical, I'm not finishing that sentence. The damned do not miss a single con. In fact, the damned were there when Midwest Fur Fest suffered a chlorine gas attack. I'm pretty sure that counts as domestic terrorism against furries. The thing is though, this whole spectrum, it falls apart without the damned. It falls apart. That's just trickle-down economics. Their passion for this fandom, and at this point, I'm hesitant to even call it a fandom as much as I'd call it a lifestyle. Few people will ever feel this strongly about anything. And that's why they're down to shell out hundreds, and I mean hundreds if not thousands of dollars, on the most accurate, bespoke representations of their beloved personas. It's tempting to resent these people, to wonder why humanity wasn't enough for them. But at the same time, I respect them for being so sure of themselves, of who they are, and of what they love. Not many people are ever going to be able to feel that way. So, there you have it. The next time you find yourself deeply invested in the romance of two animals, and it makes you question your own identity a little bit, just remember, yes, that does make you a furry, but it's okay, because there are levels to it, and chances are, you're pretty low in the spectrum.